Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Leaders of Leaders podcast. I have got an incredible guest on the show today, a Ron Reich. So Ron is he's passionate about leadership and management development and that subject matter. And he is a SME, as we call it in the Marine Corps, subject matter expert and coach with 28 years of experience in diversified industries. And we will get into that. He's an expert facilitator. Ron believes in involving participants in their learning, leading to higher engagement and quality results. Also, a voracious reader, he stays current with the latest research and philosophies, which he loves sharing with his clients. And if you want to be his client, or you're finding that you're loving this conversation that we're having and what he is bringing to the table, obviously we've got links down below. Click over, get on his LinkedIn, send him an email. Ron, thank you so much for hopping on the show.
Oh, Aaron, truly, it is my pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, all of the things that we could and can talk about will most definitely overlap. And so I figured we'd start with the most easy to understand thing, and that is leadership. No, obviously leadership can be convoluted, it can be too complex, it can be too ambiguous, it can be too specific, all these things. And as you know, we are unapologetically disciples in Christ on this show. And so I come to you and I ask, from Ron's perspective, what are the key traits to a leader?
I'm gonna answer that question, Aaron, by sharing with you what I like to do in my leadership sessions. One of the first activities we do, break the participants into small groups and just have them brainstorm, what is your role as a leader? So they'll put their responses on the flip chart during the debrief. Just ask them what's interesting about your responses. They'll look, there's overlap, and there's always some other stuff. What we always come back to is, and I'll just ask them, as you look at your lists, how much technical, how technical are your responses? And
Mm.
they'll look, and it's like, wow, next to none. And I was like, that's right. What does that tell you about your role as a leader? And they answer it for me. Again, what I believe in is that I want them to be involved. Our role is to be human. And I was like, that's right. That's exactly right. And that is one of the most important traits any leader can have, is to be human in so many different aspects of leadership. Because, like we said before the show and even now, this can go in so many different directions. There's so many different topics, subtopics, whatever. Still in all, the leader needs to be human.
And so when you say be human, is there a specific value set or understanding or thing that you're thinking about in terms of humanness? Because we could obviously go in a few different directions here. We could think
We could,
biologically human. So
sure.
yes, this human feeds, this human mates, this human whatever. Or we could go in a psychological standpoint. Okay, this human is looking to improve quality of life or thrive, or a spiritual aspect. And obviously, you're a Christian. I'm a Christian as well. And so this human must have Christ to be fully human, right? If we are truly the imago Dei, right, the image of God, then, and we've created separation, then obviously connection through Christ would be the most human thing that we could
Mhm.
do, right?
I think, Aaron, what I think about is, and again, based on the reading that I've done, the research is clear on this. When I say a leader needs to be human, any leader needs to get to know the people with whom he or she works
Mm.
really well, personally, professionally, every which way. The better you know the people with whom you work, the more effectively you will work together. Additionally, another absolute critical trait that ties into this is that leaders need to know themselves extraordinarily well in order to be able to lead effectively.
Okay. And so then let's walk through a few leader scenarios in regards to this, right? So let's say I am a leader that needs to be high production construction, and the work is fairly monotonous. I'm gonna do the same maybe framing of let's say I'm building like shops, or I'm building
Mhm,
storage units or something, right? And so I need my team to just grab their nail gun and get after it and work really hard all the way up until their break. Then they take their break, then they get right back into it, and then they work really hard up to their lunch, and then they take their lunch, and then they're off their lunch, and then they work really hard for their next break, and then they work really hard, and then it's like, all right, see you later. And so obviously that minimizes the amount of time where I can get to know them and they can get to know me. And obviously I could be very introspective during that time, right, with myself. So talk me through how you would guide or direct that person to be more human and get to know his or her team
mhm,
during that
mhm.
process.
Couple things. Number one, actually, if you don't mind, Aaron, I'm going to ask you a question. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
what do you think is the number one reason people become unhappy at work across the United States and across all of industry?
Well, so it would have somewhere to do with feeling like they're actually a part of something that's bigger than themselves,
Okay.
or money. Right? It's like I would think that there's maybe some, I don't know, somewhere in there there's something.
Yeah. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot like
Oh
that
no,
either.
that's
Thank you for that.
yeah.
Aaron, the number one reason people become unhappy at work is their relationship with their manager.
Mm,
And one of the major reasons people become unhappy with that relationship is that the manager does not provide enough recognition and or enough respect
mm,
to his or her direct reports. And I mean, when we say recognition, using your example, hey
mm,
guys, thank you so much for your hard work. I know it's freezing out. Here's coffee for you that I bought.
mm,
It's really hot, guys. Just going in the other direction. Here's some Gatorade.
mm,
One thing for me, after all of my years of experience, one thing that still jazzes me from a recognition perspective is just asking me for my opinion.
mm,
Is somebody coming to me, hey, Ron, I've got an issue. Can I run this past you? What are your suggestions? And in the construction environment, Aaron, or anywhere, I think one of the best things a foreman or any leader can do is just gather the team, and even it's during quote unquote work time. Let's
mm,
take a little bit of time, everybody. First of all, what can we do differently? What are your ideas? What can we do more effectively? What can we do more efficiently? I'm not the know-it-all. You are the ones out there pounding the nails. You're the ones doing the work. Help me to make your jobs easier.
yeah.
And for me, I mean, I think that makes just a huge difference. And I mean, is salary important? Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely it is. On most of the surveys I have seen, it is sixth or seventh. So down a ways, still important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, and again, what if grasshoppers had door gunners? Birds wouldn't mess with them so much. I get it. I'm what ifing, and I'm what ifing to sort of showcase not only who you are, but also showcase like these are real scenarios, and some of these like I've had to deal with, or some of these I know people that have had to deal with these frustrations. So what if everybody provides complaints about what could be better, right? Like, oh, this sucks, that sucks. this is hard, that's hard, this is challenging, this is stupid, this is mundane, all of these negative things, but zero solutions, right? So that's the first what if scenario. How, as a leader, can we manage that situation, and then maybe ask better questions, or
Mhm.
adjust the way in which we're creating this communication, this dialogue.
Part of it can be the setting of expectations
Mm,
is letting teams know. And again, whether it is a construction team, whether it's coming from an engineering group, an accounting department, whatever, is
yeah,
like, listen, nothing is perfect. I
yeah,
get that. I
yeah,
get it. Except the one thing I do need you to do, if you have concerns about something, you got to come to me with some potential solutions.
I
Because
like that.
again, I'm not a know it all. I
Yeah,
may have some ideas. Absolutely. I want to hear your ideas. You are the subject matter experts here
mm,
doing the actual work. You need to come to me with ideas because otherwise, if all you're going to do is complain, candidly, I don't want to hear it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really good, because I think that oftentimes does get, especially the new leader that hasn't experienced that for the first time or whatever, and they're like, hey, I want to be, more emotionally intelligent. I want to have a better relationship with you. Here, let me open up this opportunity for a relationship, and then it's like pa, 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 just totally barraged by complaints and issues and problems. Like, oh man, I didn't want to have to, and so it's good to be like, oh, well, okay, if you're going to bring up why it sucks, then maybe also bring up a solution. Oh, so then that brings me to my next what if, right? Which is, so they come up with solutions, but their solutions suck, right? Like, and maybe and that, so there are scenarios where it's like, okay, get off your high horse. Maybe their solutions don't suck. Maybe give their solutions a shot or
Mhm.
whatever. But I'm saying this leader did it, was in the trenches for 10, 20 years, knows it backwards and forwards, has made a bunch of mistakes, has done it maybe 100 different ways, and done it often 100 different ways. And he knows that these 10 ways are the worst ways to do it, but then that's the solution. How do you interact then with this horrible solution? But this person, maybe they're newer at it, and maybe they aren't the subject matter expert, and they really think, hey, we're not doing it this way, and this is the way. Like, this is a better way. I've thought about this. I really think this, and you're like, man, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I tried it that way multiple times, and it just falls short. What then in that scenario? How do you create dialogue around that?
Number one for me is letting the person know sincerely that you appreciate them bringing you some ideas, bringing you some potential solutions, and that's really important. It's
Mm.
just like, oh, you're saying this isn't going to work.
Yeah,
It is the first comment.
sure.
It's like, gee,
Like what?
I'll be bringing you a lot more ideas.
Yeah.
No, thank you for your ideas. Your ideas. I appreciate it.
Mm,
In this particular case, and that to me, that's the key, Aaron. In this particular case, I have some concerns about it. I've
mm,
got over 20 years of experience. Let me explain to you the concerns I have about your ideas. And
mm,
then either explain it and or if it's appropriate, like you said before, get in the trenches with them and show them this isn't going to work. This
mm.
isn't faster. We're using more material. It's taking more time, whatever it might be. And at least that way, in my mind, I'll put it this way. I'll speak for myself.
Hmm.
If somebody did that for me or with me, you'd have a lot of credibility.
Yeah.
You'd have a lot of credibility.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can recall plenty of moments in the Marine Corps where it's like, yeah, there's a reason why there's a standard operating procedure that's this way, and I really do. And for me, I was much more of a liberal type of a leader in relationship to the Marine Corps, and a lot of that had to do with, I was in the Marine Corps, in my young years. I got out for 7 years, jumped into the corporate world and then the entrepreneurial world, and then jump back in the Marine Corps. So it's like, hey man, I'll be open to some stuff, but then sometimes people will say certain things. And yeah, but the cool part was if you jumped in, literally jumped in the trenches, or literally, jumped in the pits, or grabbed the weapon and showed them the operation. Is like, hey, this is your way, boom. Okay, this is the way that we do it. Notice how it was faster, or notice how it was more effective, or notice how the results are better. So thank you for so much for sharing your perspective and your solutions. Keep them coming, keep processing, keep thinking about it, right? I want to hear more. Yeah, I love that. I think that those are all, man, I mean, for anybody that deals with situations like this is gold, right? This is highly, highly valuable. Okay, so now let's switch to a much more corporate environment, much more sitting at your desk. There, you're trying to dialogue with somebody, you're trying to create a better relationship with somebody, but you're doing it over the interwebs, right? It's all done virtually. you
Yeah.
you don't meet them in person. They can't really feel the nuances of your body language. They can't even, you can't see all of my body language. I can't see all of yours. We only see this upper thirds part of us. How, or maybe even worse, like no video, it's all just chats and messages and emails and phone calls and texts and things like that. How does a leader manage a team and improve their relationship with their team if everything is virtual?
One of the things I like to recommend, and this comes up a lot. I was in Philadelphia last week, and we were actually talking about this in the session.
Mm-hmm.
For me, Aaron, one of the recommendations I like to make is to just reach out to team members when you have nothing to talk to them about. Is just call. If you're a direct report of mine, or if you're a colleague of mine,
Mm.
is just call. Say, hi Aaron, it's Ron. Hey, how you doing? And you're expecting, I'm sure, this is my boss. What does he want? Nothing. I just called to check in. How's it going? And I see on the shelf, Aaron, Dad. How are the kids?
Yeah,
What's going
yeah.
on? I see some books back there. What have you been reading lately? I'm a big reader. Just those sorts of things. And that links back to me again, being human,
Mm.
just being human and letting people know, yeah, we need results. Of course we do. Except that's not the be all end all. And for me, I think having good relationships with people is more important than focusing more on results, because the relationships will lead to the results.
Mm. Yeah, I love that, and that is, uh, and I'm sure there's secular people that see the value in that as well. But that's also such a Christian, right, perspective. Like, if we are truly discipling in Christ, then we are loving people, sacrificing, serving people, connecting with people, right, on a day in and day out, a daily basis, to include obviously connecting with God as well on a day in and day out basis. But in that, right, that is where the community improves. That is where the church, the body, right, the larger big C church improves. And you can see where the church is waning or not doing as well, big C, right, community. It's because it lacks that. It doesn't have that, right?
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
it just totally, to me, it just totally makes sense. It's really easy to connect the dots. Yeah, it's called relationship. And if those relationships are healthy, then chances are the thing that those relationships are coming together to create in relationship is probably pretty healthy as well. And that being the
That's right.
results. I love
That's
that. I
exactly
love that.
right. I mean, yeah, it's just, I love the phrase. It's just so simple. What would Jesus do?
Yeah.
In this scenario. And again, I'm thinking about something. I hope it ties in. I think it does. Quite a few years ago, I was in Philadelphia. I was doing an American Management Association class. We had finished
Mm.
Friday afternoon. People were leaving, And one of the participants came up to me, a young lady. She says, Ron, can I ask you a question about something? Sure, of course. And she asked me a question about work. We ended up talking for about a half an hour. And about 20 minutes into it, she looked at me quizzically. And I could tell she was going to say something. She goes, Ron, we're finished. Everybody's left. You're not getting paid for this. And you're sitting here talking to me. And I'm just smiling. I was like, yeah, sure I am. Of course I am. She goes, for what reason? I said, number one, I care. Number two, anything I can do to help you that'll make you better, whether it's at work, whether it's personally, in some way is going to circle back to help my wife and I at some point in time. So of
Yeah.
course I'm going to spend the time with you. I'm glad to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the relationships though. That's what makes the difference. And I believe very strongly, Aaron, that's one of the things that sets me apart from a lot of other people. Because I mean, and I say to people all the time, everybody listen. You know, if it's an American Management Association, whether it's a private client, folks, listen. I am available to you. Or
Mm.
if you want to talk one on one about a situation, get me at lunch. Talk to me. I'll come early. I'll stay late. Talk to me at a break. I'm available once I've left. I have read so many books over the years. I can make book recommendations to you. And this is my passion. This is what I want to do. Please
Yeah.
take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's totally sowing and reaping, right? It's like if you're sowing into people, if you're sowing into well, and you said it, right? It's like if I'm a leader and I can make you a better leader in that maybe you're not in a leadership position but you're a human, so you have a sphere of influence, right? There are people that you are going to inevitably influence, even if it's the person that you see at the coffee shop every day, or your friend or your colleague and coworker, right? And maybe they're not subordinate, or maybe they don't report to you, or maybe they're it's not like you're in a positional leadership position, or positional leadership, but you are in leadership, right? Because, like you said, you're human. So now I'm acting human. And so it's like, yeah, why wouldn't I, if I'm in a position to help you, why wouldn't I help you improve
That's
so
right.
that you can be a better leader? And yeah, maybe directly it doesn't affect me. Maybe, you all of a sudden create a team that makes huge commissions and you're able to, finally do something incredible for your family, or whatever the case might be, or now you're on some list or whatever that you've always wanted to be on. Like, oh yeah, that doesn't maybe directly affect me, but if one day you're like, oh, Ron helped me out, this is a question that you have, he helped me out with this question, go talk to Ron, is like, okay, well, there it is, right? And I guess that is direct, but even indirectly it's like, hey, you're doing better, man. That is amazing, because that was my whole purpose, right? That was my whole goal, is to help you be better. Yeah, no,
Aaron,
I love that.
I'm sorry. I'm chuckling because I have not thought of this in so many years. And you just reminded me of a story. Many years ago, my mother-in-law was alive, okay? And I took her to the doctor. Excuse me. Get there, and the receptionist was someone that she had known for quite a while. She went up to her, Gloria, I haven't seen you in forever. How are you? And Gloria said to her, Rose, my husband died.
Mm.
Oh, I didn't know. The doctor came out and called my mother in law in, and it wasn't necessary for me to be in the appointment with my mother in law. So I was talking to Gloria, and I was like, Gloria, I heard your husband died. I'm really, really sorry to hear that. I said, I said, with what I do for a living, I know a little bit something about change management and transition management. How open would you be for me to just take you through some information for a few minutes? Oh, I would love that. So I took her through some information. I was like, Gloria, tell me, your husband is gone now. What has ended? What's ended? And she was going through, I miss him, and some other things. And I said, okay, Gloria, please go on the other side. What positives have come from your husband's death? She thought about it. He's in heaven. He's not in pain anymore. And then you could see the tears starting to come. She was like, I'm spending more time with my son. And again, we talked it through. And Aaron, my point is, it was so sweet. She reached over to me. She goes, are you a minister? I was like, Gloria, no, I'm not. I'm someone who knows a little bit something, though, about dealing with transition, dealing with change. And again, that's building relationships and that's making a difference in the world.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. Well, and it's all of the stuff that it's being human or having the emotional intelligence to uh, not not manage this person's emotions, but help this person see like, oh, what is going on, and there might be bright spots, and and you can embrace those. And it's not like I'm trying to remove your period of mourning or grief or anything like that. Like that's obviously part and parcel to the thing, but having the emotional intelligence and the wherewithal and the humanness to be able to connect with somebody in a soft way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
mean that's exactly it. And interestingly to your point, because when she said to me, I'm able to spend more time with my son, and she said, I've been feeling so guilty about that. And I was like, there's nothing to feel guilty about.
yeah,
It's just part of the process itself.
yeah,
And you miss your husband, clearly, you loved him dearly,
yeah,
and you still need to mourn his passing. Absolutely, you do.
yeah. Yeah. So then now I want to kind of jump into, and not to abruptly stop the the softness of the moment, because I was actually starting to get a little teary eyed as you were telling it, thinking about this woman who is shedding tears of mourning, but also then tears of joy at the same time. And it's interesting. I just doing a little bit of study with C.S. Lewis, and he talks about as we become converted, as we do our conversion, right there, it's equally joy filled and incredible and triumphant, and you get to connect with the Lord, but then it's also like kind of brutal. Like, man, I'm not only shedding this old me, but I'm now confronted with how maybe not so good I was, and feeling like the full impact of that, and feeling the impact of making poor choices and bad choices, but now also feeling this joy of making this great and incredible choice. And so I say all that to lead into, I see Jesus Christ as the leader of leaders, and in that I'm saying is he had influence, and it wasn't like, oh, I was able to get on a loudspeaker and speak to tens of thousands and millions of people in this moment, and then everybody changed. Because I mean, he did actually perform miracles in the thousands, right? And so people were amazed by that, but then those people weren't necessarily the people in the first church, right? But there was a few people in the first church, but then out of that few grew many, and there was this incredible generational influence and
Hmm.
impact that reverberates continuously from, like we have BC and we have AD. Like there's this hinging point, and then we see the effects of Christendom in the world, right? Reverberating in the world from this incredible moment in time. And so I see Jesus Christ as the leader of leaders, but then I know that you are passionate about not only leading other people, but not leading to gain a bunch of followers and gain some notoriety, but leading to help other people lead. And you kind of mentioned that a little bit prior to the story of Gloria. And so I want to kind of open that up a little bit. So, how has your Christian walk, but then also how are you walking out this sort of leaving a legacy and this impact of not just being a leader to generate followers, but being a leader to create leaders that create leaders, right? And this kind of reverberating
Yeah.
impact.
A leader's, John Maxwell, an author that I like, wrote, a leader's main job is to grow other leaders, is
Mm,
to develop other leaders.
mm,
And Aaron, I agree with your comments relative to Jesus being the greatest leader of all times. Having built the 12 disciples as leaders, who
mm,
built leaders themselves,
mm.
who built leaders,
Yeah.
and like you said, it just starts to trickle down and trickle down and trickle down. And I think there's a comment that my friend and old colleague Dave Beverly makes, and I have believed it for a long time. And the more and more, and as I get a little older, the more I believe it. And David says very simply, you never know. You never know when you are making a difference in someone's life.
Mm,
It can be as small as a smile. It can just be opening a door for someone. It can be saying thank you to someone. I mean, I had a situation well, actually, you know what? It's approaching 5 years almost
mm,
exact. It'll be 5 years in January that my best friend Paul died.
mm,
Long story. I don't need to get into that part of it. I was down in Orlando. I had worked with a client, and Paul probably had about 3 weeks to live. I'm in a restaurant in Orlando, at the airport, just having something to eat before I fly home, and I was not doing well. I
mm,
was upset. I was very emotional. Everything.
mm,
To this day, Aaron, I don't know who it was.
mm,
Somebody walked behind me and touched me on the shoulder, and I looked around and I was like, "Who was that? Who
mm.
just touched me?" Because that was exactly what I needed at that in the moment. And I wish I knew who it was. That person has no clue what he or she did for me. The only thing I could piece together, I think it was probably one of the wait staff. I don't know who it was, like I said. And my point simply is, though,
Hmm.
that's what leaders do. I'm not looking for the recognition. I'm not coming up to you. You look so sad. Let me comfort you. That would have been fine, except just the touch itself did it. Move on.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for the recognition. I'm not looking for, hey, everybody, here I am. I'm your leader.
Yeah.
It's just, that doesn't, I don't like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, and you said, I mean, you've alluded to this a couple of times on the call, and you said this prior to the call, where it's like, it's not, you know, I think so often it's maybe a fallen nature, a fallen humanness, in us. But so most definitely instinctual, where it's like we're looking for this specific result. But if there's anything that I've observed in myself is like anytime I've had like this, and I'm a pretty task oriented guy, but and so I had this achievement set up and then worked really hard and actually accomplished this incredible feat, right? Whether it was lifting kettlebells on the world stage, or setting a record, or being first Marine Division's tow missileman of the year, or or I don't whatever, like all these incredible cool things. Every time I've gotten to that achievement, gotten to that sort of mountaintop experience, I'm like, cool, I'm here. and then it's a back off the mountaintop, and you descend into, and what if there's anything I've understood, it's like, man, and you said it, instead of focusing on the results, like focus on the people, focus on the relationships, focus on the process, and then the results will come. And the results, it's not a bad thing, right? Like we can have metrics that we can measure results and things like that. Like this is a very normative business thing. This is a very normative human thing. But man, can you talk a little bit about, was there a certain aspect, or was it a book, or was it just experience and observation where you're like, I'm pulling back on the results, pouring into this, and then the results come, and then also with that is, are there times where companies or people are like, well, yeah, but our business runs on results, so what about that? Like I'm concerned.
Hmm. I'm gonna go back many years. Uh, when I first got into training and development, I was
Mm,
working for Toshiba, and we were doing sales training.
mm,
And we had certain quotas that we were supposed to hit as sales trainers relative to the number of people we trained each fiscal half. And we were also supposed to train a certain number of people in each of the courses that we offered.
yeah.
Okay, we had an entry level course, we had a mid level, if you will, and an advanced sales training course. I was close to my quota in the mid level course, and I was doing a class in Boston. I still remember, and I was two people short of my quota for the fiscal half.
Mm,
I thought to myself, you know what? You know what? I could call the dealer in Buffalo. He's got two people who I know he'll send, which will help me meet my quota, get the result. Except I also know those two guys are not quite ready yet for this class. And Aaron, I can't deny, I called the guy. I said, "Do you mind sending them?" And he did. He sent them, and I hit my quota, and I did not feel good about it at all. Not at all. And just realizing that the results are not the be all end all here.
mm,
And interestingly, the one thing I just think of in the moment too, I'm a believer in Simon Sinek's work. And the one thing Simon says too is that, you know what, do we need to have metrics? Do we need to have quotas and everything else? Absolutely we do. Are they the be all end all? In my opinion, I'm speaking as Simon. No, as long as things are trending in the right direction.
yeah.
He said, because otherwise, you're going to start making decisions that aren't in the best interest of the company, that aren't in the best interest of the people, which is what I did. I need these two people for the numbers. They didn't get as much out of the course as they would have 6 months later.
Yeah.
And that wasn't fair to anybody.
Yeah.
And I mean, two people, is that really that big of a deal, Ron? You missed it by two people. No.
Yeah. Yeah, so talk a little bit about, what are some of the scenarios, or what are some of the things that you're able to do to create a ripple effect, to have leaders develop leaders. So obviously you are developing leaders. That is super clear. But then, what are some of the things that you do? What are some of the ways in which you're able to um, sort of challenge or encourage or support
Hmm.
those leaders that you're developing to develop other leaders?
One thing in which I am a huge, huge, huge believer is reinforcing the training that has taken place. And that is one of the ways we can start to build other leaders. So many people, so many clients, so many organizations drop the ball after the training itself. Ron, great. We had a great event. This was wonderful. It's like, right, now we need to reinforce it. Because 6 weeks from now, somebody go up to somebody and say, what did you learn about delegating? What did you learn about feedback? Or that Ron Reich guy. Yeah, yeah, I liked him. Good class. Don't remember a whole lot about what we covered though. And when you reinforce it, that's where it starts to trickle down. And that's where people start to think about, hey, you know what? Aaron's a good boss. I like him. He's human. I'm learning from him. I'm growing. I'd like to get in a position like that someday. And that's where those kind of dialogues can start.
So is there homework or is there for this reinforcement? Is it homework? Is it follow up? What ways would the person walk away and instead of going, man, that Ron Reich was great, can't remember why, but he was great. What are ways that you help them reinforce it by
I one
pursuing it?
one thing that I like to do is actually shadow people that
Okay.
I've trained. I will go back and I will spend a day with a manager, with a leader, and just shadow for the day. Say very, very, very little and just take copious, copious notes. And after a meeting, after a telephone call, after a conversation with a colleague, just give some feedback, positive feedback. Aaron, I love the way that you just recognized Julie. That was fabulous. What do you think that's doing for her morale? Aaron, you know what? The feedback that you just provided, Rob, I thought was a little bit more was somewhat judgmental rather than behavioral. This is what I saw. This is what I heard. Let's talk about it. And that's where the real learning, and that's where the actual application takes place. And
Mm,
that's where you can make such a huge difference. Plus, when I'm visible, I can also get to talk to the other people in the organization and find out what they're looking for relative to. Are you looking to become a leader? Are you looking to become a manager, a supervisor, whatever it might be?
yeah, that's good. And so is there other things that you can do or you have done um, where you're not okay? I'm not able to shadow. What what are ways that you can reinforce
One,
if you're
one,
not able to shadow?
one of the best pieces of business advice, Aaron, I ever got in my career was probably about uh, 20 years ago. Again, whatever. An old boss of mine at a pharmaceutical, making a long story short, said to me very, very simply, if you want to become better at what you do, Ron, you need to start reading.
Mm,
Because he said you are an excellent facilitator and you're a content expert, except you don't add any more value. And he said if you start reading more, you will add a tremendous amount of value. You'll become a resource for people, and that's one of the things we can do to reinforce the training as well. And it's one of the reasons I love to read so much, Aaron, because I don't make book recommendations across the board for people. In
mm.
other words, okay, class, this is the book I want you to read. Sometimes I will if it's appropriate. More often, though, it's individualized for what the person is looking for, or where they want to grow, or what's necessary for them to get to the next level. And that's another really good way to stay in touch. And then we follow up and have conversations about the book itself.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm doing that with a client right now. And she actually, and interestingly, Aaron, she works for a small law firm. And I had a conversation with her the other day, and she was saying, I'm not sure where I can go from here. And I was like, okay. So we talked it through. I made a book recommendation to her. And I told her, I was like, Emily, listen, read the first two or three chapters. Let's make an appointment. We'll walk through the first two or three chapters. I want to find out from you what you got from it, what you learned from it, what you think you can use. And then we'll keep doing that through the book. Then you're going to have some more ammunition when you're ready to go talk to your boss about a career path.
Yeah, I like that. So I'm gonna ask for a general blanket book recommendation. uh, but let's say the person that's listening is fine. They're in a sphere of influence. They realize, okay, they have influence. They're in a leadership position, right? They have people that actually report to them, right? 4 people, 6 people, 20 people. I don't know,
Mhm,
right? Um, and they're looking to, instead of just getting them to do the daily stuff and to follow their commands, or follow their tasks, or follow their lead, they're looking to develop them into leaders themselves. What would be a, again, I guess this is a general, but what would be a general book recommendation that
mhm,
you would give for somebody looking to, whether it's leave a legacy, or impact, or uh, leverage leaders, or intentionally build into people so that they can see that they have leadership potential and can be
mhm.
leaders?
I think the book I would recommend is called Leading at a Higher Level,
Mm,
written by Ken Blanchard.
mm,
The book is based on his and Paul Hersey's model of situational leadership.
mm,
I love it because he talks about the model of situational leadership itself. When do you need to direct? When do you need to coach? When do you need to support and
mm,
delegate? And he does it from different perspectives, from an individual perspective. In other words, if I'm your boss, Aaron, I'm going to direct you right now. No, you need coaching right now, Aaron, whatever. He also approaches it and gives the information, gives the tools working with teams.
mm,
When is it appropriate to just delegate to a team? When does a team need coaching? He also talks about the need for recognition, and again, it's all encompassing. Is my point,
yeah,
written simply, and
yeah.
I like it, and that would be my recommendation for that audience.
I like that. And so, do you have a book recommendation for a Christian leader? So this Christian leader, she finds herself in a leadership role and wants to pursue God's call, to build into the kingdom, but is also, not allowed to proselytize in her corporate setting, uh, uh, and even, proselytize is more the negative denotation of evangelizing, but even evangelizing might look, or put her into a position where, okay, no, you can't be, preaching preaching the word in this work setting. We're here to build cogs, or we're here to,
Mhm.
develop software, or we're here to, do whatever. Let's focus on that. Is there a book or a recommendation even, that you would have for somebody, that finds themselves in that position?
I'm going to answer Aaron by, and again, this is going to sound very self-serving, and I truly I don't mean it to. There's no book that's popping into my head.
Mm,
What I would recommend, though, based on what you're asking, is I have developed uh, what I call it's thought-provoking questions. It's about
mm,
10, 12, 13 questions, whatever it is, that can help people think through very, very carefully,
mm,
where am I right now in my life? Where am I right now in my career? And what do I want to be doing with my career? What do I want to be doing with my life? And how can I blend the two of them together? So, if anybody in the audience is interested in that, please, please just leave me a message. I will gladly send you the file. And again, if anybody wants to talk through their answers, I will
mm.
gladly do that.
Yeah.
I did that with a VP of HR a while ago, who was struggling. And, he was saying that, I love my job. I feel kind of unfulfilled. And what we decided is that he's getting closer to retirement, and he wants to be near the water. He wants to work with something with the ocean and this kind of thing. And there's a museum near where he lives. He lives down in the Florida area, or down in the Miami area, and he's going to be able to volunteer down there. And he figured that out from the questions.
Yeah, nice. And so yeah, so the person that finds themselves in a position where they're like, man, I really want to, pursue the kingdom of God in this very secular environment, even almost muting type environment. Hey, hop, click the link down below, hop in the DMs, right? Is that what they call it nowadays?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
These young whippersnappers, uh, jump into the DMs and say, "Hey, do you have those clarifying questions for me to help kind of clarify a solution for me to, I find myself in this very secular position in this very secular job. I do like the work. The work isn't evil, the work isn't bad, but I'm also not able to, preach like a preacher would preach at church in this position, but I do want to, have opportunities and conversations and ability to go and make disciples and tell people to come and see who this Jesus Christ is. And so you're saying, hey, hop into and so is that part of the community that you're building as well?
It
Is that
can be part
community
of it.
inside
Yes.
of LinkedIn, or is it inside of
It,
talk a little
it's
bit about that.
people within the community can
Mm,
request that. People, just individuals themselves, can request it. It doesn't
okay.
matter to me.
Yeah. And so when they hop on and like click through to your profile and then now they're able to direct message you, how would they become a part of this community that you're
There,
in the
there
midst
will
of
be a
developing?
link there to join the community.
Okay. And
Yeah,
so
are you interested in joining the community?
yeah, so I did want to talk about that to help kind of showcase you a little bit more. So talk me through a little bit of like, okay, what is this community about? How does this community work? Why, what's the purpose behind this community?
The purpose behind the community, Aaron, simply is to give people some leadership information on a, I don't want to say on a regular basis, because I don't want people to think they're going to get inundated.
Mm,
Probably once every 2 weeks, maybe once a month, something like that. We'll be sending out leadership snippets that I've written. I have done a lot of very short videos just talking about leadership traits, what leaders do, just everything along those lines. We've gotten very, very positive feedback from it so far, and there's meat to it.
mm.
It's not just like, well, you need to build relationships. Contact me, and you can learn how. I don't believe in that. Is that here's how to do it. There's going to be some meat to it, and if you want to pursue this, yeah, I'm interested in learning more about you, and I'm hoping you'll learn more about me. Except again, I'm not here to just look for the results.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're not trying to meet a quota of a certain amount of people in a certain amount of time on this community.
Exactly. That's right.
You can't call I can't remember who that was, somebody in Boston, and get those two more
Yeah, that's right.
people. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
right. Um, okay, well, Ron, again, thank you so much for talking through. Well, shoot, we kind of jumped into a bunch of different topics from a bunch of different perspectives. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your value with the listeners, so that they can continue to improve in their spheres of influence. And then, I mean, the goal is to become leaders that make leaders, disciples that make disciples, both and so if before I close out, I was just curious. Obviously, you've got a ton of experience in the industry, and then you talked a little bit about some of the things that you've done in the past. So what is your background, and kind of where are you currently resting in terms of being able to bring this value to different companies, different corporations, different groups, and different
I've
leaders?
had my own business for the past 18 years.
Mm,
I have 29 years total experience. And pretty much what I'm doing right now is working with emerging leaders and current leaders. One of the most fun, Aaron, I ever had in my entire career was working at the one pharmaceutical company where my colleague Dave and I, who I mentioned earlier, were in charge of the Future Leaders Program.
mm,
And it's something that I am just absolutely passionate about because, again, I think it makes such a difference for organizations. I'm not going to say even I think, I know it does. It makes such a difference for organizations. It makes such a difference for people. There is a guy in Mississippi, Stacy is his name. He and I don't talk often. He went through the Future Leaders Program at Oregon many, many years ago,
mm.
and he says to me to this day, I use the stuff you guys taught us every single day. And he is now a regional director. And I
Nice.
mean, that's what I'm in this for, is to get that kind of feedback.
Well, I appreciate it. It seems it's almost like your weight. Often this is the case, right? Like, oh, what's your angle? You're waiting for the the other foot to drop, kind of a thing. And it seems to me that you're truly just passionate about helping people
Yeah,
become better leaders, right? Better
that's
listeners,
it.
have better EQ, improve the improvable traits that they can improve from a behavior standpoint, trending in the right direction, uh, be it quantifiably so from a metric standpoint, as you were saying with the Simon Sinek, but then also qualitatively as well. So just improving general qualities, person personal traits,
Yeah.
character traits, things like that that are going to make a better leader. And so, again, I really appreciate you, Ron, for hopping on. I
Oh, Aaron,
appreciate
I'm
you
glad
just
to
saying,
do it.
"Hey, come reach out. I'll connect with you. No strings attached. I'm not going to try to, corner you and sell you and put you on my quota. I'm going to truly try to
Aaron, I'll
help
tell
you
you
out."
what. Do you mind if I just finish with a quick story?
Oh, I would love it.
Only because we were talking about, you never know when you're making a difference, and
Mm,
people can lead when you're, just, well, let me tell you the story. My
yeah.
mom died 2 years ago, a little over
Mm,
2 years ago.
sorry.
Long story short, uh, she had had a couple of small strokes, and she had we weren't sure if she wanted to get treatment for these strokes. This was in the middle of COVID. Long
Mm,
story short, we had a conference call with her. You want to talk about a woman who is deeply, 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 deeply religious and just unbelievably faithful. We had a conference call with her. She starts off by telling the four of us, first of all, I can't live forever. I know that she was 99.
mm,
I can't live forever. I'm comfortable with that. I don't want any treatment.
mm,
And the reason I don't want any treatment is number one, when I die, I'm going to heaven. Number two, I'm going to see your father again. And number three, before I die, I get to spend time with all of you. How
mm,
can it get any better?
mm,
Wonderful. Wonderful. On the day she died, Aaron, uh, we had been talking about a chariot all day with her. My sister's like, Mom, the chariot's coming. We can see it.
mm,
Mom, it's coming. Mom, the chariot is coming. She died, and it was clear she was gone. So I was just talking to her for a minute. I gave her a kiss, and I was like, Mom, I can see the chariot. Aaron, let me tell you something. The presence of God in that room was absolutely overwhelming. And I'm not kidding. I have never, ever, ever experienced anything like that. Nothing. And
mm.
again, my point is what a leader she was. More importantly, what an incredible Christian woman she was. And I will see her again.
Mm. Well, Ron, thank you so much. That's a great finishing story. I really appreciate you taking your time and sharing with us. Um, yeah, everybody, if you haven't already done so, click the link down below, jump into his DMs. Clearly, just wanting to take the shirt off his back to help you out.